רגע. בוקר טוב לכולם, ברוכים הבאים לוובינר שלנו. Welcome and good morning, Anna King. We're very happy to have you, to host you here in this special webinar for cosmetics producers and exporters, which is going to tell you anything about the China cosmetic market and the regulatory introduction and recent policy changes. A few words about Sissima and about Anna. Sissima has been founded in 2002. The company focuses on regulatory affairs in China, covering the National Medical Products Administration, formerly called the CFDA, registration for cosmetics, medical devices, and drug master filling, as well as China compulsory certification and China manufacturer license. They have 100 experts in 11 offices in many places in the world, in Europe, in the USA, in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and various areas in China. Anna King, our lecturer today and presenter, has been working in Sissima Group since 2013. She's been advising companies on China certification as business consultant of Sissima in Munich, in Beijing, and Hong Kong. She resides in Hong Kong, although she told me she hardly saw her home in the past year. Now currently she's in Dubai, and she specializes in the NMPA registration of life science products, including cosmetics, and she even wrote a scientific works on topics of regulatory affairs in China. So I'm sure you have the best expert to talk about the regulatory policies in China, and I leave the floor to you, the stage to you. One thing before we start, I know many of you always want to know whether they can get the presentation. So at the end of the webinar, Anna will send us the presentation in PDF and we'll send it to you. So don't worry about it and concentrate in listening to what Anna has to say. If you have any questions, you can write them down. From time to time, Anna will ask for questions, and I will also comment on these questions once when you go along. So I wish you a fruitful morning, and Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Daphne, for the introduction, and also thank you to the Israel Export Institute for having me for this webinar. And as Daphne already explained, today the focus will be China and how to conquer the Chinese beauty market, how to register your products in China before you can sell them there. First, I will start.
Muted. Unmuted.
Okay. Excuse me, I just saw that I was muted. So thank you again, Daphne, for having me in this webinar. I will speak about how to register cosmetics in China, and I will start the presentation by introducing the administrative body and talk about the categorization of cosmetics in China. I will then continue to speak about the two different approval systems, because in China there is a filing system for non-special cosmetics and a registration process for special cosmetics. And in the end, I will finish off by addressing some of the latest regulatory updates. So first, the regulatory body in China has seen many changes. It was first introduced as State Drug Administration in 1998. And since then, it has been renamed multiple times, as you can see, and also the responsibility scope has been extended. In 2003, the responsibilities including cosmetics, were introduced. Also, the regulatory body was renamed to SFDA. But not only that, later on in 2013 and 17, there were continuous changes. Majority of you will probably know the regulatory body CFDA, and a lot of people still refer to the regulatory body as CFDA, China Food and Drug Administration. However, in 2018, this was actually renamed to National Medical Products Administration. So this is the official term now. And something else that was changed during 2018, this was during the 13th National People Congress, is that the former CFDA had a quite broad responsibility, but when the regulatory body was renamed to NMPA, all the food-related items that you can see on the slide in white were actually removed and given over to the Center for Food Evaluation. So now the NMPA can really focus on the registration and supervision of cosmetics, medical devices, including IVD and pharmaceutical products. So now that you know who is the most important regulatory body in China, I would like to continue by introducing the definition of cosmetics to you. As in many other countries, it's a daily used product intended to be applied externally on the human body by certain different types of methods. I assume this is not very different to any other country. However, what is different is the categorization. And this in China is the non-special cosmetics and special purpose cosmetics. Non-special cosmetics are any products that are for hair care or skin care, different types of fragrances or makeup or nail cosmetics. On the other hand, special cosmetics are cosmetics that have particular claims. These could be hair growth restoration, breast enhancement, deodorants, spot removing, and actually skin whitening falls into this. It was added in 2014 as an additional claim. So anything that refers to skin pigmentation, so would fall under spot removing. Then sunscreen. So all sunscreens are considered special cosmetics. Hair dyes or hair perms, hair removing products, so depilatories or body shaping. Now that you know which products are non-special and special, we can continue with the regulations and standards in China. So overarching is the Cosmetics Hygiene Supervision Regulation. And this, as you can see, was last introduced, or well, it was introduced in 1989 and since then not changed effectively. There is also the Cosmetic Safety and Technical Standards and a number of regulations related to the approval procedure of cosmetics. One thing I'd like to mention here is that the State Council passed a new cosmetic supervision and administration regulation draft on the 3rd of January this year. However, there have been so many drafts. There has been one in 2014, another one, a revised one in 2015. Now this one in January. No one really knows when this will be implemented. A lot of the regulations are quite old, so we are expecting this to happen soon, but when this will happen, no one really knows. And on the next slide, you can see some other regulations related to testing, labeling, so what is allowed to be written on the packaging, naming, and this relates to ingredients, and ingredient green list. Regarding the last two lines, I'd like to say when it comes to ingredients and the way you write them, it's very important to comply with this naming standard or directory that the NMPA has given, because they're very strict. So if you use a different wording for ingredients, the NMPA might look at it, probably recognize what ingredient you're talking about, but still reject it. So this is important. And the other thing, what I called here ingredient green list, is unfortunately not as black and white as it might sound. So there are two lists, one from 2007 and one from 2015. And these are inventories of existing cosmetics ingredients. However, they don't really ensure that if you find an ingredient on there, that it's definitely going to be approved by the NMPA. What we tend to do is we check if an ingredient of a product is listed in both lists, in both inventories. If it's only listed in one of them, we also additionally check if cosmetics products that already successfully gained approval in China contain any of these ingredients, and then it's generally safe to proceed. However, yeah, unfortunately, these inventory lists are not quite as helpful as they might sound at first. Next, I would like to talk about the actual approval procedure. And when it comes to non-special cosmetics, a relatively new procedure was introduced in 2018. And since November 2018, manufacturers of non-special purpose cosmetics have to follow this new filing procedure, while special purpose cosmetics continue to do the old registration procedure. And in order for you to understand better the differences between these two, I have made an overview of these two approval procedures. Registration, as I said, is for special purpose cosmetics, and these applications have to be done through the Beijing NMPA, whereas the filing of non-special cosmetics can be done either in Beijing or in one of 11 free trade zones. So just a little bit of history for you to better understand why there are these 11 free trade zones, and is it maybe better to do it there or in Beijing? The reason that there are these free trade zones is that in 2017, this filing system was actually first introduced in China in specific new trade zones. The most famous one is Shanghai Pudong, just to test this new system out. And that's why there are still the possibility to file your non-special cosmetics in Beijing or in these new trade zones. I personally, it is definitely good to, to see advantages and disadvantages of the new trade zones. I personally don't see so much of an advantage now anymore. Back in the days, this was the only option to do a filing, but now that you can or have to do it anyways, I would probably prefer the Beijing NMPA because they're just more routinized when it comes to imported cosmetics. The duration of approval is quite different. As you can see, for filing of non-special cosmetics, it's 4 to 5 months, versus the registration for special cosmetics, it takes significantly longer because the claims carry potential risks, or so at least the NMPA thinks, and makes additional testing mandatory, and the technical review takes its time too. The certificate type is a hard copy for registrations. For filings, now it's this electronic credence. And one thing important to mention here is that it's very important, if you have a special purpose cosmetics, to hold on to the original certificate. You really want to have that because that gives you a lot of power. Similarly with the electronic credence, choose your NMPA responsible person wisely, so that you have a say in how to manage the electronic or your online account with NMPA. The certificate validity, next, is 4 years for special cosmetics, but unlimited now for the filing of non-special cosmetics. So that is a big relief. The responsibility of the responsible person is only limited to registration when it comes to special cosmetics, and slightly more extensive when it comes to filing. Now, first of all, who is this responsible person? The NMPA responsible person is basically a representative in China that represents you in front of the regulatory body in China and assists you with the regulatory and administrative procedure, and kind of builds that bridge between you, the foreign cosmetics manufacturer, and the Chinese regulatory body. Furthermore, the residence of responsibility of the responsible person is important when it comes to filing, because if your responsible person is resident, let's say, in Guangdong province, then you also have to do the filing in Guangdong with the provincial regulatory body. And furthermore, when we look at the last line, when it comes to import, subsequently, your products have to be imported through that provincial zone. However, these zones can be extended. So you can apply to also import through other provinces. Now that I have already mentioned this NMPA responsible person, I would like to go into more detail. I already mentioned it has to be a legal entity in China, authorized by the applicant, who is responsible for registration. But not only that, when it comes to non-special cosmetics, the responsibility scope was extended. Why was the responsibility scope extended to also import, marketing, and product safety? The reason is that the NMPA wants to hold more people accountable for product safety. They want to make sure Chinese consumers are safe. What this ended up doing is that a lot of distributors say they have to be the responsible person, which is not true, because you can also appoint someone else. And I'm going to show you your options in the next slide. So as a foreign manufacturer, in the end, you have three options. First is to open your own subsidiary in China. This is certainly very elegant, but also not necessary if this is not a good option for you. Then secondly, you can appoint your distributor. This is often done. Sometimes distributors also offer to pay parts or the whole application procedure, which sounds very appealing, but also there is a reason for this, which I would like to make you aware of. First is they will ensure de facto exclusivity in many cases for special cosmetics. When they receive the hard copy certificate, the original, they will in many cases, unfortunately, not hand it over to the rightful owner, which is the foreign cosmetics brand. They will hold on to it to ensure de facto exclusivity. And secondly, all application documents will go through the hands of the NMPA responsible person, including the formula with percentages, etc. If this does not sound too good to you, then you have a third option, which is going with a regulatory expert, a service provider that can support you with this. Now that I have introduced the two different approval types for special and non-special cosmetics, and also the role of the NMPA responsible person, I'd like to dive into more detail to the actual approval process. And I'm going to start by introducing the registration of special cosmetics. Reminder, this, for instance, is a sunscreen or a skin whitening product.
Anna, before you continue, just let's stop and ask if anyone has questions. They can write them. There's a former question which was asked a few minutes ago, whether a day cream containing SPF considered as sun cream.
This is tricky. So yes. Well, the short answer is yes. If a day cream contains SPF protection, then it is considered a sunscreen. And not only that, actually, if your product contains sunscreen agents but does not mention any claims regarding sun protection, even then you have to perform additional tests, and they can be quite extensive. This was actually introduced only in September last year. So yeah, if you have SPF, if you have sunscreen agents in your product, whether you mention it as a claim or not, it will have consequences. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Daria, I hope it answers your question. Okay, so let's move on.
Okay, thank you very much, and feel free to ask more questions in the chat option. Okay, now next with the registration process of special purpose cosmetics. First, you have to choose your responsible person and apply or notify the NMPA of this responsible person. This can take some time. It takes officially 40 days, so more than a month. So do this early on. You will also need this in order to open your NMPA online account. And because this can take quite some time, these two steps, as I said, 40 days or so, it is good to do something in parallel, which is the checking of the packaging and the formula. And this is very important because the Chinese regulatory body has certain expectations and requirements when it comes to claims or method of use formulations. So the wording on the packaging, also I already mentioned the wording of the ingredients, but also the ingredients itself. So it's good to check whether they comply with the Chinese requirements as soon as possible in order to then react and potentially make changes. Next, the NMPA responsible person discusses with the test laboratories how many samples are necessary, which tests will have to be done in order to support you with the sample transport into China and the customs clearance there. Then the sample test will start, and the sample tests are done in test laboratories that are accredited by the NMPA. And interestingly, in September also last year, the NMPA actually cancelled all the accreditations of test laboratories. Within 1 month, they all lost their allowance to perform tests, and they all had to reapply. So you never quite know what happens in China. You're always shooting at a moving target when it comes to regulatory affairs. So this is what happened. Luckily, this was quite a seamless process. So all the test laboratories were able to apply for a new accreditation. As the sample testing is performed, this takes at least 3 months. I'd say that's the absolute minimum. For non-special cosmetics, for special cosmetics, it can take 9 months or longer. It's good to use the time efficiently and collect the registration files, so the different documents that the NMPA will want to see. And once the tests are finished, together with the test report, you submit the application dossier to the NMPA, which will first perform an administrative review to see if all the necessary documents are submitted, followed by a technical review, which is more detailed. And after this, it is actually quite common, not necessarily, it doesn't happen in all cases, but it does happen quite common that the NMPA will issue a supplementary notice, which gives the applicant a chance to submit some additional documents and information. So this is when the NMPA wants to have some more information. And it's very important to get this to take this chance and do it right, because you have 30 days and only 1 supplementary submission. And if it is not sufficient, the NMPA, when they reject that they will reject your application. So you would have to start from the very, very beginning again, including sample tests. So when you have a supplementary phase, get it right. And first-time applicants also have a chance to, especially when they are foreign, to consult with the NMPA beforehand, so make use of that. And hopefully afterwards the NMPA will approve your application, the certificate is issued, and you can go forth with customs clearance and the import of your products. Here is a typical... Mm-hmm.
Two questions, Anna, before we go on.
Yes.
One, if you're looking to change the person, the responsible person, is it going to take 14 days as well?
The change of responsible person, so this depends when you want to do it. I always advise not to do it during the registration process. You don't want to hold this process up. It is actually possible to do it during the process, but I would always advise to, make up your mind first and then do the application, do the registration. Don't mess with the information during the registration procedure. Also important here to know is that you cannot change the formula or the packaging once you have started with the registration procedure. Once submitted, you can't make any changes within that. The responsible person change is possible. So let's say you have approval for all your products and you wish to change your responsible person. This is possible. This is called a change application. Yes. Interestingly here is that you need, however, the okay from the former responsible person for this change. So in some cases this can be a little bit tricky, but it is definitely possible. Regarding the timeline, I have to check how long it takes, because with the new filing procedure, I have to check.
So we have to choose our responsible person. Choose your responsible person very wisely.
Exactly. It is possible to do a change, but it is always involved with some struggle, especially if you don't have the certificate. Always, even if your distributor is your responsible person, please make sure to have a good relationship with them and that they give you the certificate. And if it's not the original certificate, at least the copy, but actually you are the rightful owner, so you should have it. Yeah, and it will help for any change applications. So it's very important to have your originals. Yeah. Daphne, you said you had a second question.
Thank you. The second question was that if a responsible person registered my products, does he have de facto exclusivity for importing my products, or can it be replaced?
So if your NMPA responsible person is your distributor, that does not mean that they have distribution exclusivity. The only thing is, especially if it's a special purpose cosmetics registration, they will be the one officially handing in the application and also officially picking up the original document. And unfortunately, from my experience, in most of the cases, they will not hand over that original certificate to you. They will hold on to it, which gives them de facto exclusivity. It's not officially, but that's what happens, because it's very hard then to change the NMPA responsible person. It just makes it harder. Yeah. Yeah. Choose your NMPA responsible person wisely. That's the main message, I think. If I give one, that's very important.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And this is how the official document looks like. It does have a validity date, as I said earlier, for special cosmetics. It's 4 years. Exactly. And next, I will introduce the filing procedure to you for non-special cosmetics. And it is mainly the same, but I have highlighted in red what is different. Namely, after the administrative review, where the NMPA checks, okay, all the documents are here, the test report is here, okay, they will issue the electronic credits within usually a week, actually. So you have the okay to import and sell your products. At this point, the NMPA actually has not done the technical review of the test reports and the application dossier in detail. So this happens after they have given you the okay to import. It takes about 3 months, and after this, they will inform you of their final decision, which is either approval or a supplementary phase, similar to the one of the registration, or C&D, which is luckily very, very rarely, but they could say, okay, import is suspended, or even the recall of the product is necessary. But C&D is extremely rare. I personally have never had any, we have never had a client with this. It's very rare. So A and B is most often. And this is why the filing process now is also quite speedy. Not only because the sample test is short, but also because they issue the electronic credits quite quickly. And this is how it looks like. It will be accessible online, and it carries a lot of information, such as the product name, the information of the manufacturer and the responsible person, the ingredient list without percentages, so just the normal ingredient list in Chinese, the approval NMPA code, some verification results if there were any commentary from the NMPA, the Chinese label, and also, which is quite new since last year, the layout of the packaging and any graphic model of the product. So images of how the product actually looks will be online. And a typical document checklist for non-special purpose cosmetics is on this slide. So this is typically the application dossier that you have to hand in. First, the power of attorney and letter of authorization for the NMPA responsible person. Secondly, also the business license of the responsible person in China, the filled-in application form, the product names in Chinese, and the reasoning or the nomenclature behind it, the detailed product formula containing all percentages, the packaging layout. As I said, it's quite new to hand this in. The Chinese label, so this is a label that has to be attached on the product once they're being sold in China, so that the Chinese consumer can see the most important information, such as method of use or ingredients in Chinese characters. A free sales certificate, and this is important. The NMPA wants to know or wants to see proof that this product is freely sold abroad. So this is a prerequisite to register your product in China. A BSE-free statement, so that there are no contaminations or risky substances, and a original ISO or GMP certificate. And I've highlighted this in a red circle because this is also a relatively new requirement, and they do want to see it as an original. In some cases, they also allow a certified copy by the Chinese embassy in Israel, for instance, but the original is preferred. Then a contract manufacturing agreement. If you have such a contract manufacturing arrangement, then the NMPA has to know this. Product quality and safety control files, the production process that shows what ingredients are added at what time, at which temperature, etc. A safety test report and risk assessment report of risk substances, and technical requirements. For special purpose cosmetics, in addition, what you have to submit is the scientific literature, kind of proving or supporting the efficacy of the ingredients of your product. But in generally, the checklist is quite similar. I have mentioned the Chinese label. So once your product is approved, at the first time you import your products into China, in customs, this Chinese label is registered with customs, and they will file it And in subsequent shipments to China, you can either choose to attach this Chinese label in your country or in China with help of your Chinese partner in a free trade zone. But it has to be attached, and it will carry also the approval number of your registration or filing, and the most important information for consumers to safely use the product. Because a lot of foreign cosmetics companies choose not to produce Chinese packaging, especially for the market. They just have their own, they keep the packaging as it is and attach that Chinese label. It is also, I think, mainly a marketing reason, because Chinese love foreign products, especially when it comes to cosmetics. In the application dossier is one document that has to show the safety limits of certain risk substances, and I have given an overview on this slide. These can be even more conservative and strict if your product's target group are infants or children, or pregnant or breastfeeding women. So this is something to be aware of. Now, the testing takes up a very important part of the approval in China. And that's why I've given an overview of testing duration and cost on this slide. You can see on the left.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes,
Anna, can I interrupt you for a second? There was a question regarding the electronic registration. And the question was, does it mean that the picture is exactly like the product? What about the changes in size? And then do they need to be filled separately?
Oh, that's a very good question. I like it. So yes, exactly. So these are images of your product and how they look. So the aesthetics, basically, that the NMPA wants to have in their system. In case there's any market surveillance, they want to be able to compare. Is this the product that was actually registered or filed? If you want to do any aesthetic changes, for instance, the color coding of your company has changed, then that is absolutely no problem. You just have to make sure that you upload a new image to the system. And if you have exactly the same product, but in different sizes, 10 milliliters, 50 milliliters, 100 milliliters, a liter, that's totally okay. But it is important that the product itself is identical. So the product name, all the wording on the product, of course, the formula, it has to be identical. If it's just the content size has changed, that's no problem at all. One filing is sufficient, or one registration. Okay.
Question there is animal testing needed to be done for non-specific cosmetics?
That's a very good question. And the answer is yes. So if you are a foreign manufacturer and this is an imported cosmetics, no matter if it's non-special or special, part of the testing will be human and animal testing. And the only products that do not have to perform animal testing in China are domestic, so made in China, non-special purpose cosmetics that are also not used around the eye area or the target group are infants. So it is only made in China non-special cosmetics that avoid animal testing. And I will speak about animal testing in more detail on a future slides. And when I come to that, feel free to ask more questions on animal testing.
Okay.
Okay. So on this slide, you can see testing duration and test costs. So for non-special cosmetics, the duration is on average 3 months. But the test duration for special cosmetics, you can see there is a big variety. It can range from 4 to 8 months. And this is, and this obviously is not the full approval procedure. Then there is the registration of the responsible person and the online account, as well as the administrative review and the approval procedure that follows by the NMPA. So to give you a best case scenario for the complete filing of non-special cosmetics, it would take 4 to 5 months. And that's best case scenario. If you look at the whole registration procedure of special cosmetics, best case scenario would be I would say realistically 9 to 12 months. So this is for the full approval procedure. And the test fees take up a huge, significant chunk of the overall cost. And this is dependent heavily on which ingredients you use. A single ingredient can cause additional testing and different claims. Also, of course, cause different types of testing. When asking for quotations, always ask for full cost calculations because, yeah, you want to know everything that's involved, including notarizations and application fees and so on. So there is much more to it. It's not just the tests, but this is a significant chunk. And if you ask me about the overall ballpark figure of a filing procedure of non-special cosmetics, that would be around 3,000 to 4,000 euros. And I believe in shekel, that's 11 to 15,000 shekel. Correct me if that's wrong, but that would be a ballpark figure for the overall filing cost, including everything, transportation and translations and notarizations and tests, fees and everything. So always ask for full cost calculations. When it comes to special cosmetics, it's very hard for me to say a ballpark figure. So if you are interested in pricing, feel free to send me your product packaging and I can give you an idea of how much it would cost. It's just, the range is so big, it's very hard to say. Next.
A question regarding this system.
Mm-hmm.
If we have the same formula for different brands, do we need to repeat the testing? And
Yes.
this refers mainly if you do private label to many, it could be the same products, but you have it in different names and different brands, but
yeah,
it's basically the same product.
It is, okay, understand. So if the product, the formula is the same, but they're different brands, you will have to register or file these as separate products. If it's a different brand or different applicant, a different manufacturer, same manufacturer in this case, a different brand, different name, it has to be registered separately.
So every brand needs a different test and filing, and
correct.
Even though it's the same formula and the same producer.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And when it comes to sample testing, actually, I have a lot of clients that ask me, oh, we had to make changes to the packaging. Is it possible? Can I just do a mock-up? And this I would really advise against. This is not possible. So there are 3 things to keep in mind with samples. They have to be unsealed. They should be not too close to expiration. You never know what happens. The NMPA, can just from one day to the next say, oh, all accreditations of test laboratories are herewith cancelled. They have to reapply. You never know what's happening. Just choose samples that are not close to running out of date. And mock-ups. Don't use mock-ups. So, an empty bottle or maybe, a bottle with no writing on it, and then just print off a sticker and put it on, or print off a sticker and put it on top of the original packaging because there were some formulations that are prohibited in China. The test laboratories and the NMPA, they're going to peel this off, and if it doesn't look professional, they're going to reject the application. They want to see products as they stand in shelves in Israel, or in France or Germany or in the US. They only accept products that are already freely sold abroad, and therefore please use very professional original products. When it comes to change and renewal applications, so change applications, and this was a very good question earlier, are possible, for instance, for an NMPA responsible person. This is possible. or address changes. Renewal applications are only applicable to special purpose cosmetics now. In the past, the deadline for renewal applications was 6 months prior to expiration, and we reminded our clients 1 year before, just in case standards change and you have to perform additional testing. So there has been a new announcement or a change in regulation last year where they changed the submission deadline to 30 working days before certificate expiration. I personally find this quite dangerous because, as I said, later on in September, they introduced new testing. You never know if it's part of the renewal procedure, you might have to perform additional testing. And then these 30 working days are never going to be enough for you to file and hand in this renewal application. So please start as early as you can with this, because especially if you realize that the new validity starts anyways from the previous expiration date. So there's no disadvantage in starting a little bit earlier with the renewal. Exactly. There are some niche cases. If you have approval for a non-special cosmetics, but you did it, let's say, 4 years ago now, and you did it with the old approval procedure for non-special cosmetics, unfortunately, you can't renew your product. You have to do the filing now. I'm not sure any of the audience members are affected by this, so this is nothing to worry about otherwise. Basically, the only thing that you have to keep in mind is non-special cosmetics filing, and that's once you have done that with the new filing system, it's valid indefinitely, and special cosmetics registration. And that has to be renewed every 4 years.
Question about samples.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what is the good amount to send as a sample, and whether they can send it to the representative, when an outside consultant or the representative person, they should where they should send the samples to him?
Okay, so for sample sending, the exact amount of sample mass or volume has to be determined in communication with the NMPA responsible person and the test laboratory. On average, I'd say usually we request 30 tubes or 30 samples per application for sample testing, and this would be probably if it's a 50 milliliter container. Of course, if you have a very special eye cream that is in a tiny miniature packaging, you will need to send a lot more than 30 samples because they need the volume to perform sufficient testing. But on average, I'd say the lucky number is probably 30 or 40. Yeah. And the way we handle the sample shipment is we guide our clients through it. We send a sample checklist and with all the documents they have to fill out. It's not so easy. Well, there are a couple steps involved because, of course, these products are not registered yet. So is a special shipment for the purpose of registration or filing, and our clients send it to us, and we often are we are this responsible person taking charge of the supervision of the test. So you're responsible to be the recipient.
Thank you. One more question, which I think I can answer. 3 body lotions with with same ingredients, only difference in scent. Are they considered 1 product or 3 products for registration process?
Daphne, what do you think?
I think that you have to register each product by itself. Doesn't matter Yeah, so that's the answer.
Yeah, because the fragrant is an ingredient. And as soon as an ingredient is changed or different, it is considered a different product. Yeah. And this is a huge issue for fragrance manufacturers of fragrances, of course, or so perfumes, or manufacturers of, imagine, cosmetics. If you are a producer of nail polishes and the only ingredient that changes is one pigment, unfortunately, you will have to register your 50 or 100 nail polishes separately because their ingredient is different. The pigment is different or the fragrance is different, even if it's just one ingredient. Yeah. Back to the.
I think that point is understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Back to the renewal application for special purpose products. Here it's very important to hand in this product self-checking report. Basically, this is a report that says that your product is still consistent with the original registration, and if there have been any cases of changes or renewals in the record, you have to submit that as well. And if, God forbid, there have been any adverse reactions, how you dealt with them. So that's something I wanted to include because it is quite a recent change since last year. Yeah. And now back to the animal testing question. So what I have introduced to you during this webinar is the registration product for the general trade. So if you want to sell your products in China on shelves, physically available in stores in China, then you have to obtain this NMPA certificate beforehand. But this is not the only option of import. There are two other options. One is cross-border e-commerce, which is when you send your products online, you sell them B2C, business to consumer, directly to the customer. In this case, you don't actually need approval. You don't need registration or filing certificates. And of course, in that way, you don't have to do animal testing or testing in China at all. And the third option is manufacturing in China. So some companies choose to subcontract or send bulk their products to China and do the final manufacturing process there, which means, for instance, the packaging, the filling of the products into bottles, etc. And then these products are considered made in China, and therefore non-special domestic cosmetics don't have to do these. They have to do tests, but not the animal tests anymore. However, one very recent development I'd like to mention here, I've written it down here. So this is a recent development of cosmetics regulations in Guangdong province, actually. So there on July 1st last year, they released or implemented a Guangdong cosmetic safety regulation where where it basically doesn't allow foreign companies to entrust a Chinese manufacturer to produce the products on their behalf. So this is just one province that I want to make you aware of. So I'm not sure whether this is a trend and this is going to take over. I have no idea, but it's just something to be aware of. So some provincial regulatory bodies are somehow restricting this option. And also something that's important here to say is that in that case, it's very important to regulate who is actually the applicant and the owner of the product. And in some ways, it is a bit harder because the manufacturer will be the official NMPA online account owner, not necessarily the certificate owner, but the online account owner. And this can sometimes be a little bit tricky also if you change your manufacturer in China. That revokes all your certificates and makes cancels them. And you would, if you want to change manufacturer in China, that means you have to file all your products again. So these are the 3 options you have when entering China. And regarding animal tests, there have been quite a lot of actually announcements regarding animal tests. In September 2018, this was first when a working group for the validation of alternative methods was established in China, which gives a lot of hope. And there has been also 1 or 2 more announcements from the NMPA that say they want to abolish animal testing in future. However, nobody knows when this is going to happen. And unfortunately, yeah, this could be tomorrow or in 10 years. It's really something, yeah, when unfortunately no one can say. And on this slide particularly, you can see the alternative test methods that were introduced as alternatives to animal testing in China. But unfortunately, they're only for cosmetics ingredients, so not for the finished cosmetics products. So they don't apply to cosmetics approval at all. This is more for R&D phase or cosmetics ingredients application, which is a completely different story, by the way. So, and by the way, if you ever hear any rumors or news about animal testing, yeah, feel free to contact me, and I hope I can make things a bit clearer to you. Unfortunately, right now is an imported cosmetics manufacturer. It is not possible to avoid animal testing. And last but not least, some regulatory changes. I have already mentioned that the NMPA suddenly revoked all testing institution certificates in September. This luckily was not too much of a hiccup. Furthermore, the managing of the tests in China are now done online. So applying for a sample test and the following and the management of them are done online just to increase efficiency. And new mandatory test items, and I have listed them here for you, which is one of the reasons why testing can be slightly more expensive now since last year. And again, here I mentioned that sunscreen agents in cosmetics, even if it's a non-sunscreen product, cause additional testing. Sometimes these sunscreen agents are in there to protect ingredients rather than, they're not used for protection of the consumer, but more for the formula itself. Unfortunately, this has consequences. Then in November last year, there was a draft. So this is not implemented yet, but it gives a taste for what might come in future, that the NMPA might introduce overseas inspection of cosmetics factories. They have officially introduced this for other product types. So for medical devices, this was introduced last year, towards the end of last year. And this might also be the case in future. And also plastic microbeads in cosmetics are going to be banned in China starting from December 2020. The production is banned starting in December 2020, and the sale will be banned in 2022. As you can, I'm aware that a lot of countries have already done this. China takes Europe and the US as a role model, but in many cases they're a little bit behind of international trends. And we've already come to the end of this presentation. And if you have more questions, now would be the time, and I'm very happy to assist, and I will do my best to answer them. Otherwise, feel free to send me an email at any time.
Thank you very much, Anna. It was educational, and I've heard your presentation in the past, and it's always nice to hear, and you give a lot of information. So thank you very much. We have a question regarding the animal testing when you send online, how to avoid animal testing. They said whether is it by drop shipping or a regular one. as far as I know, anything you do online, you don't need animal testing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there are there are these special cross-border e-commerce platforms that you can use for this, and you can. I am a regulatory affairs specialist, so I don't know that much about cross-border e-commerce because it does not require registration. But according to my knowledge, you can either store your products in bonded warehouses in China, or you can ship them directly to the consumer. The key is it has to be B2C.
So B2C. So if you send it to a firm, it has to be with you have to test the products, right? If you send it directly to a consumer, then you won't need it.
Exactly. So if you want to physically sell your products in a store in China, or engage a distributor that assists with that, you have to register your products. If you send them online, you don't need registration.
Okay. Any more questions? Well, let's see. Okay. What kind of services does your company offer with regards to registration of products in China?
Okay.
That's a very good question.
That's a good question. So what we do, well, since 2002, we specialize in China regulatory affairs and China product safety certification. We originally started with CCC, which is more for machinery and automobile industry. But we basically assist with anything that requires registration, any products that require registration prior to being imported and used. And actually life sciences, so cosmetics and medical devices also is currently our biggest field. It's growing significantly. So there's a huge demand in China for this area. And we support basically with the registration itself, everything that's regulatory and administrative. And we can also represent as the NMPA responsible person in China, because we have 5 offices in China. We do anything China related, basically. And you can also find more information on our website. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question, which I'm not sure I understood, but are you limited to an amount if you send from buyer to customer? I'm not sure I understood the question.
I will try to see. No, I can't see the question. Could you repeat that?
Sorry?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. The question was, are you limited to an amount if you send from buyer to customer? This is about the bypassing the testing.
Ah, I see. Ooh, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sorry. I can't answer this question. If this is very important to you, feel free to send me an email and I will try to find out. Again, cross-border e-commerce, because it doesn't require registration. It's not my focus, but I can find out for you.
Okay. As I said, we are receiving questions regarding the presentation. We will send you later when we get it from Anna. We will send you a PDF of the presentation and also a link to a feedback questionnaire, which will be very happy if you fill it. And I want to say that we had with us at the webinar the commercial attaché in Shanghai, and also the commercial attaché of the Ministry of Economies in Beijing and other parts of China are working with us to assist you in the Chinese market, and you're welcome always to contact us for any specific requests or questions. Just say goodbye now by face. So thank you again for joining us. I hope you had a good and educational morning, and feel free to contact us in any question. Thank you, Anna, for joining us, and have a great day. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.